Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button because we're about to dive into something that Blue Jays fans absolutely need to hear right now. Today we're talking about Kyle Tucker, the outfielder everyone thought was coming to Toronto, and why that dream is officially dead in the water. This isn't speculation anymore. This isn't hopium. This is the cold, hard reality that the front office doesn't want you to know about. Let's get into it. So look, I've been covering the Blue Jays for years now, and I've seen a lot of free agency disappointments. Ohtani choosing the Dodgers, Soto picking the Mets, and now we're watching Kyle Tucker slip through our fingers in real time. But here's what makes this situation so much worse than those other whiffs. The Blue Jays actually had a legitimate shot at Tucker. They were in pole position just weeks ago. Insiders were saying Toronto was the front runner, the pieces were falling into place, and then somehow, some way, it all fell apart. Let me paint you the picture of what we've lost here. Kyle Tucker isn't just another outfielder. This is a guy who can change the entire dynamic of your lineup. We're talking about a player who can hit for average, hit for power, steal bases, and play elite defense. This is the exact profile the Blue Jays needed after coming 2 outs away from winning the World Series. 2 outs. They were that close, and instead of adding the piece that could put them over the top, they're watching him sign somewhere else. The reports started coming out about a week ago that the Cubs were making a serious push. Then the Astros got back in the mix because, of course, they did. Houston always finds a way to keep their stars or replace them with someone just as good. The Yankees started circling. And suddenly Toronto went from being the favorite to being just another team at the table. What happened? How do you go from pole position to not even being in the final conversation? Here's where it gets really frustrating for Blue Jays fans. The money is there. We know the money is there because they just handed Vladimir Guerrero Jr. a massive extension. They went over the luxury tax threshold for the first time in franchise history. They're paying a $286 million payroll. So don't tell me this is about budget constraints. Don't tell me Rodgers doesn't want to spend. They spent the money. They just spent it on the wrong things, and now they don't have the flexibility to close the deal on Tucker. Think about the optics of this for a second. You're a franchise that just lost the World Series in 7 games. You had the opportunity to run it back with essentially the same core, add 1 or 2 impact pieces, and make another legitimate run. Tucker was that piece. He would have slotted into right field perfectly, pushed some guys down in the order, and given you another switch hitter who can terrorize both lefties and righties. Instead, you're going to roll into spring training without him, and you're going to try to convince your fan base that Alex Bregman or some other consolation prize is just as good. It's not. And let's talk about what this means for the clubhouse. You think Vlad doesn't notice this? You think Bo Bichette, who's already on his way out the door, doesn't see that the front office can't close on marquee free agents? These players talk to each other. They know what's happening around the league. When you consistently come in second place for the big fish, it sends a message that maybe Toronto isn't the destination everyone claims it is. Maybe the whole baseball city thing is just marketing, and when push comes to shove, players would rather be in Chicago or Houston or New York. The Tyler Rogers signing for $37 million over 3 years makes even less sense now. You're telling me you had $37 million to give to a 35-year-old reliever, but you couldn't structure a deal that would blow away the competition for Kyle Tucker? Rogers is a fine pitcher. Don't get me wrong, but he's not moving the needle. He's not the difference between winning the World Series and losing in 7 games. Tucker is that difference. Tucker's the guy who gets you those 2 extra outs you needed last October. Here's what really grinds my gears about this whole situation. The Blue Jays had leverage. They had the recent World Series appearance. They had the loaded lineup with Vlad locked up long term. They had the pitching with Dylan Cease and the rotation intact. They had everything a free agent would want except the ability to close the deal. And that comes down to organizational competence. That comes down to Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro being able to sell the vision and make a player feel like Toronto's where he needs to be. Clearly, they couldn't do that with Tucker. You know what the worst part is? Tucker isn't even going to some small market team where you can say, well, he just wanted to go home, or chase a bag with a rebuilding franchise. He's going to a contender. He's going to a team that's going to compete for a World Series, and it's not going to be Toronto. So now the Blue Jays are stuck watching a divisional rival or a National League powerhouse add the exact player they desperately needed, and they have to explain to their fan base why it didn't work out. The excuse machine is already starting up. You'll hear about how Tucker wanted to stay closer to home, or how another team offered more years, or how the asking price was too high, or how they have other plans in motion. None of that matters. Results matter. Championships matter. And right now, the Blue Jays are 0 for their last 3 on big free agent pursuits, and they're about to be 0 for 4 when Tucker signs his deal. Let's talk about what comes next, because it's not pretty. Plan B is supposedly Alex Bregman, who would be a solid addition, but he's not Kyle Tucker. He's a third baseman who'd have to shift to second base because the infield is already clogged. He's older. He's going to cost a fortune, and he doesn't address the outfield need that losing Tucker creates. Plan C? Maybe they circle back on some mid-tier guys who don't move the needle. Maybe they convince themselves that internal options are going to step up. Maybe they pray that George Springer discovers the fountain of youth and can give them one more elite season. None of those are championship solutions. The reality is that the Blue Jays front office got outplayed here. They got outmaneuvered by smarter organizations that know how to recruit and close on elite talent. And before you come at me in the comments saying I'm being too negative or that I don't support the team, understand this. I want the Blue Jays to win just as much as you do. But wanting something and having the organizational competence to achieve it are two different things. Right now, Toronto has shown they can get to the table, but they can't close the deal when it matters most. This isn't the end of the world for the Blue Jays season. They're still a playoff team. They're still talented enough to make noise, but they're not better than they were when they lost the World Series, and every other contending team is getting better. That's the problem. You're standing still while everyone else is moving forward. And in this league, standing still means falling behind. Kyle Tucker was the move that would have kept them ahead of the pack, and now he's gone. That's the harsh truth that Blue Jays fans need to accept as we head into 2026. The window is still open, but it's closing faster than anyone wants to admit, and missing on Kyle Tucker might be the moment we look back on as when everything started to unravel. All right, that's all I've got for today. Let me know in the comments what you think the Blue Jays should do next, and I'll see you in the next one.